Within this short film, I've tried to convey an element of an emotion within my characters. This has stemmed from researching from Joseph Bates, who stated the apparent desires of a character and the way the character feels about what happens in the world with respect to those desires and what makes us care about the character. If the character does not react emotionally to events, if they don't care, then we never will. The emotionless character is lifeless, as a machine, according to Thomas and Johnston. Properly portraying the emotional reactions of a character requires the animation or animator to remember several key points. And I think this is really applicable to my short film because I've taken away a lot of dialogue. In fact, stripped a lot that I first wrote in, and I favoured more noises in a sense. I wrote in for my characters to breathe heavily, to have exaggerated movements, to feel panicked, drench them in panic, and therefore you create an emotional character, therefore creating an emotional response to my audience. They can see these people are in distress. And then it also balances the two characters out because one, our first character, is in complete distress. He's distraught, he's worried. You can see something is coming, creeping up those stairs to get him. And that applies to the audience. They then feel somewhat scared along with him, yet the other character, in contrast, is as calm as water. He feels nothing. There is nothing for him to be afraid of. Therefore, in his stillness and his relaxed, nonchalant way he moves, that emotion then applies to the character and again to the audience, making them see who is in control and who isn't, and making them relate more to that panicked feeling, which everyone, I believe, has had a feeling of panic, maybe in not the same situation, but they can relate to this character due to that emotion. It's interesting as well to see how a person can identify with a character. And I believe in this, I've made an identifiable character. Again, going with the emotion, I believe an audience would look at my character and see parts of themselves. Maybe we don't always panic and we're strong individuals, but there's always an element of underlying fear, I think, in the day-to-day, and that's what I've tried to get across in an extreme situation. And Jonathan Cohen wrote, operational definitions of identification have generally used indicators of attitudes and emotions towards characters as measures of identification. Theoretical treatments of identification have suggested the identification is more primary and internal processed. For example, Livingston, in 1998, described identification as imagining being someone else's shoes and seeing the world through his or her eyes. According to this definition, identification should be seen as determining the audience member's basic position even. And this basic position, I believe, really does come through looking at the character and thinking, what would I be like in his shoes? And I think I've created a character that shows you exactly what you would be like. You would be scared. You are not in a position of power. When everything is stripped away from you, you have nothing to fall back on. Therefore, creating a completely believable character, because I believe that most people need to submerge themselves into the character. You can. My last point relates to narrative effects. And reading Seymour Chapman, he states that the medium may specialize in certain narrative effects and not others. For instance, the cinema can easily and does routinely present characters without expressing the contents of their mind. And I don't do this, but I don't agree with him. I believe that it's not always about expressing what's in their head. Of course, you use little hints with writing in the way that they move and the way that they feel. I believe there's a much more of a visual connection than an internal connection. I think you must disconnect from what they're thinking because you are shown what they are thinking. I believe that Seymour talks a lot more about verbal narrative. And I've tried to strip away a lot of that, mainly only giving dialogue to only giving dialogue to my darker character. He is in the position of power. We can hear what he is thinking, although it is only to scare the other character. Therefore, again, our audience are hearing what the character would be hearing and start to feel a bit more connection, engaging once again. But I believe the fact that I've taken away from verbal narrative doesn't show you any less about what he is thinking. But I think sometimes you don't need to hear it or think it. You're not in their head. You just want to see things from their perspective. And I believe in doing this, I've created a very engaging character because I haven't overloaded my audience with their conscious. I'm not giving them my character's brain. I'm just giving them a snippet of my character's life.